now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. Please be seated. Honorable members, the only item on today's order paper is questions addressed to ministers in the peace and security cluster. Before we proceed, I would like members to join me in welcoming volunteers, professionals who are offering their skills to resolve the water crisis in Malutia Pofu, in the Free State. They are in the gallery there somewhere. Honorable members, just take it easy. We'll draw your attention to them when they are here. Members may press the talk button on their desks if they wish to ask a supplementary question. I wish to remind members that names requesting supplementary questions will be cleared as soon as the member of the executive starts answering the fourth supplementary question. The first question has been asked by Honorable N.H. Maseko Jele to the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker and House. As part of our efforts to combat GBV and prevent sexual harassments include strengthening of various legislations, which includes the Domestic Violence Act of 1998, which is aimed to protect persons against any physical form of abuse or sexual abuse, economic and various forms of abuse. And the process of review of this act is already underway. In relation to there's also the Protection from Harassment Act of 2011, which was passed to protect victims of harassment, including sexual harassment, and put into the effect the right of people in South Africa to be free from all forms of violence from either public or private resources. There exists a sexual harassment policy in the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development and also at Correctional Services. These policies have been in existence for many years, and it is also currently being reviewed. The review of the existing policies seeks to address the protracted period it takes to investigate sexual harassment complaints, provide better protections of complainants and sexual harassment victims, and address power relations, in particular as between persons who are harassed by their supervisors. The Department of Correctional Services developed and implemented the Prevention and Management Sexual Harassment Policy and its procedures, which were approved since May 2018. Some of the policy or implementation events includes Top Leadership and Women SMS were the first group to be inducted on the approved policy. We started from October 2018 to December 2019 and is still continuing to date. The induction was followed by the signing of a pledge by the same participants. There are sexual harassment designated persons responsible for assembling all sexual harassment complaints per region as required by the policy. To date, 5 reported incidents are investigated by an independent person at the level of senior managers or middle management from other regions in conjunction with the Director Gender and employment equity. In addition, a sexual harassment committee has been established and its members have been appointed by the National Commissioner to monitor all reported cases of sexual harassment. In all reported cases, the department strives to complete them within 30 days. There has also been a training in terms of this sexual harassment policy, which has been conducted since 2019 in the various regions of the department. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Maseko Chede.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister.
Deputy Speaker.
Oh. Thank you for correction.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you.
Minister, you have mentioned that the department has designed special empowerment programs for employees. This may be commended. Is there any impact assessment being conducted on these programs so as to assess whether or not they are yielding the desired outcomes?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The current review of the policy also includes the impact assessment to see whether the policy's objective or its outcomes are being achieved. But from the current engagements, it does look like it has made a positive contribution, but the clarity and the scientific outcome will be the biggest indicator in terms of that impact. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Mafanya.
Honorable Chair, I think this is a mistake here. There's a mistake here. Thanks.
Okay, I'll take the ACDP, Honorable Swart.
No, Chairperson, I think there's a confusion of buttons there because we do have a follow-up to that honorable member. She's still new. So I beg your indulgence.
Honorable members.
Thank you.
The buttons must be where you are seated. So please don't make sure that is corrected. Yeah, go ahead.
Ngosi, Deputy Speaker, I have a follow-up, Minister. A lot of actors get sexual harassed during production of movies, documentaries, and other film productions. There are no policies in place to monitor sexual harassment. What is he going to do specifically on it? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Enkosi ngiyabonga, Deputy Speaker. I think this question might need me to interact with my counterpart from Arts and Culture because it relates to actors in the entertainment industry, which I think is an important question. It's an important consideration. I will liaise with the Minister of Arts and Culture to see if there is already a program that is in place, that is being started, and if there is none, what should be done, and so forth. But I will liaise with my counterpart.
Thank you. ACDP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Minister. Minister, arising from your response, it is clear to us in ACDP that there are a number of well-written laws to deal with both gender-based violence and sexual harassment. However, the problem, in our view, lies with implementation of those laws, went from arrests to investigations to prosecution. And we also see the secondary trauma that victims of sexual harassment in the workplace or rape survivors do suffer from when they have to give evidence. In view of this, Minister, how can the department deal more comprehensively with the secondary trauma that rape survivors and, of course, victims of sexual harassment suffer in the workplace? And in the workplace, one can have levels of intimidation as well. But if you could address that for us, we'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Minister.
Yeah, no, thank you, Deputy Speaker. It is true that There is a need to strengthen the implementation capability in any department, including ourselves, when it comes to the issues of sexual harassment in the workplace. And the issue of secondary victimization, the policies, as we spoke, are victim-centric, but the current review process will make them more centric so that there is no secondary victimization in terms of the reporters of this kind of misconduct, and to find ways to ensure that the victims, they don't find themselves again being intimidated or for whatever reason on the basis of what they have reported. So the process will further be strengthened to ensure that it is a victim-centric process. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Breitenbach, I think it is.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Mr. Minister, part of the problem in South Africa with gender-based violence is the failure to appreciate that sexual violence occurs on a continuum, which stretches from sexual harassment at the one end to rape and murder at the other. 10 years ago, the Center for the Study of Violence and Reconciliation found that in South Africa, sexual violence often escalates along this continuum, so that perpetrators begin with acts of sexual harassment and escalate towards more serious crimes like sexual assault and worse. How will this be factored into the review of our sexual crime legislation that is being undertaken as we speak?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it is indeed an issue that we are looking into in terms of the escalation or graduation of the types of crimes that are being committed by the offenders who are particularly prone to this kind of sexual violence kind of crime, that they will start small and end up being big. So that kind of a situation has to be arrested from the situation or from the community, the police, NPA, and the entire criminal justice system, so that whoever commits even the smallest type of a crime knows that the chance of being apprehended is very high, so that there is no kind of repeat offending, and that act as a deterrent, because the biggest deterrent to any criminality is the possibility, is the fact that the offender knows that the chances of him or her being apprehended are very high. So that is what we are working on in the entire cluster, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, we go to question 21, which has been asked by Honorable A.G. Whitfield to the Minister of Police. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Based on the records of the South African Police Service Integrity Management Service, and since reply to the question 1298 on 17th December 2019, no SEPS members and immediate family of SEPS members have been found to be doing business with the SEPS. Thank you very much.
Honorable Whitfield.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, between 2014 and 2019, a total of 101 family members of SAPS employees were found to be doing business with SAPS. Just 20 of those contracts associated with these family members totaled nearly 7 million rand. During this period, not a single SAPS member made any disclosures, and only 5 companies disclosed their relationships with SAPS employees. It appears that a culture of closed crony corruption has become so well entrenched in the South African Police Service that one may be forgiven for seeing SAPS as a family-run business. Last year, the Global Corruption Barometer labeled SAPS the most corrupt institution in South Africa. In a country literally riddled with corruption and captured by the infamous Gupta family, being labeled the most corrupt institution in the country is a remarkable achievement. What action has been taken against SAPS members who have failed to fully disclose their relationships with companies doing business with SAPS? And what steps have been put in place by the Minister to ensure that SAPS is no longer treated like a family-run business? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. What you didn't say is that what you are quoting is an answer you find from me. Having given you that answer before, in December, we have put mechanisms the management of the South African Police has checked on the members if they've stopped, but almost everybody that is within the system of the South African Police, the business is stopped that person was doing with the police. But there are further investigations that are done and make sure that some people will have to be consequences when they are found, especially at the senior level, because they know very well that they are not supposed to do that. And for the fact that they did not disclose, it's because they know that they were not supposed to do that. Maybe when all the process is done and gone, it will be easy to give the report back that what have we done with those individuals that were all listed on the earlier reply you received in December. Thank you.
Honorable Shembeni, this is what the list says here of the EFF.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, there are police reservists who work as security guards in the South African Police Headquarters and the department. How were these people employed? Under which employment conditions? And who remunerates them? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Well, Chairperson.
All the honorable members stop screaming. We must listen to the minister reply.
Well, I don't mind answering this completely new question. It's a complete new question. Indeed, it's an issue that when you go to police stations, you find the people that are guarding these buildings, including the colleges of the South African Police Service, the academy areas guarded by these people. These people are not the private security companies, are not employed by the private security companies, so they don't fall under SIRA as such. They are employed as a security grouping within the South African Police, paid by the South African Police. What I will concede here is that they don't get the benefits that are received by the members of the South African Police, of which has been raised with the National Commissioner to say we'll have to correct that. Either they are police or they are private security company. If they are private security company, can't fall under the police because they look at SIRA. But if they continue to be employed by the South African Police, they must be the members and get full benefits. I would agree on that.
Honorable Peacock of the ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Integrity Management Service was initiated to prevent corruption, among other things. What is the assessment of its success to date in preventing corruption within the police?
Honorable Minister.
Well, definitely the systems that are put there, they do have positive outcome. But I would be lying to come and give the value and the percentage of that, having not gone through the scientific assessment. How far have we gone with that? But at the face value, looks like it does have the impact. But exactly giving the finer part of it, that this has done this, this has done this, this has done this, there are no scientific outcomes. But indeed, the issue that this management of integrity has been put, it does have the positive impact. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Terry Blanche.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honourable Minister. Minister, in relation to the members of the SAPS and or their families that were found to be doing business with the South African Police, this is now before your intervention, were investigations done to determine whether everything was above board and not in conflict with the law or their official duties? And if yes, Minister, what consequence management was instituted and what was the outcome of that? Thank you.
I thought that question was answered. That question has been answered. Thanks.
Honorable members, before I move to question number 32, honorable members, if you ask more than one question, do not be surprised if all the 7 questions you subsequently ask is not answered. Because the arrangement, you know, is that you should limit how much and how many you ask. So let's go to question 32 that has been asked by Honorable Ndlozi to the Minister of State Security. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Our response is that Section 199 of the Constitution dictates that security services must be structured and regulated by national legislation. Section 209 contemplates that intelligence units may only be established by the President in terms of national legislation. Subsection 2 dictates that the President, as the head of the executive, must appoint the heads of each intelligence service established in terms of subsection 1, and must also assume that he must appoint and designate a member of cabinet to assume the political responsibility. The establishment of intelligence units are neither sanctioned by the President nor statutes of the Republic that are neither sanctioned nor established by the President are unconstitutional and illegal and contrary to good government intelligence functioning. It is not within the purview of this minister to oversee the activities of other institutions of state. The executive responsibility therefore rests with the President as the head of state, that I cannot investigate such actions if they do occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ndlozi.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, the so-called rogue unit report, as the minister, you are a custodian of it. It was sanctioned by the ministry that you are now heading. And in it, there are reports of clear actions that are against the law, where members within that unit in SARS engaged in illegal activities. According to the law, you are obliged to report crime. And for the authorities concerned, particularly the Hawks, to follow up on those individuals that have broken the law, even if those people may be members of the executive. So in the rogue unit report, there are names such as the name of Minister Pravin Gordhan. It's your report. Will you be taking them up in relation to the obligation you have to report them to the relevant authorities for breaking the law by using intrusive equipment and establishing a unit without necessary legal frameworks and the oversight mechanisms as the law requires? Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ndlozi. The National Strategic Intelligence Act of 1994, and as amended in 2013, defines a departmental intelligence as intelligence on any threat or potential threat to national security, which falls within the functions of a Department of State. And that includes intelligence needed by such departments in order to neutralize such threats. The Act does go on in Section 3 to very clearly say that any department that does gather information does not have the right to perform the gathering of information or intelligence in a covert manner. Now, you will also remember that this matter is before court, and I am one of the respondents, And I would respectfully request that we stay this question until such time that the court has heard the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Kebekulu.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honorable Minister, it has been stated that when intelligence analysts are close to policy operators, the risk grows that assessments will be cut to suit the cloth of the policy, which appears to be a frequent problem with most intelligence. Added to this is the ongoing perception that perhaps through that intelligence resources are often deployed to provide government of the day with information they can use against political rivals, which is so often spoken about. Honorable Minister, how do you intend to ensure and can assure the South Africans that intelligence resources are used solely to the defense of South Africa, her people and her interests? Thank you.
Honorable Minister, and compliments to Honorable Kebekulu and the way she genderizes her references to the country. Absolutely progressive. Go ahead, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much for the honorable member's question. We are in the process of developing new legislation that will tighten any possibilities that might arise for nefarious activities to be performed by intelligence officers. I am dealing with some of the issues in the department that relate to that interface between the political and the members of the organization. As you would know, we have cases before us that we're dealing with that are under investigation, but all of that will be given to the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence for further reporting. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Tring.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honorable Minister, the alleged SARS rogue intelligence unit has been in the news continuously over the last few years, and recently the NDPP submitted the case to a review panel which unanimously agreed that there are no reasonable prospects of a successful prosecution. Does the Minister agree with this decision? And can the Minister confidently declare that there was or is no rogue spy unit operating at SARS worthy of prosecuting? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
I will not delve into the issues of the NDPP because I represent state security. There is a report before us that is now a subject of a court process, and I would really request that we leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Dukhale.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Does the law make any provision, Honorable Minister, for the other departments of state to have intelligence gathering capabilities? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. The law does allow for that. Safe to say that they are not allowed to do covert gathering of information or intelligence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, we go to question number 37, asked by Honorable Ngola to the Minister of Home Affairs. Honorable Minister, Tadim Solid.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The Republic of South Africa.
Deputy.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Republic of South Africa fully supports the vision espoused in Agenda 2063 relating to free movement of persons and goods as part of continental and regional integration. In this regard, South Africa has signed the African Union Free Trade Protocol. The Department of Home Affairs is also rationalizing ports of entries, exploring the establishment of one-stop border post with neighboring countries to facilitate trade. The one-stop border post is also for facilitating movement of persons through having a one-stop for entry and departure procedures. This will strengthen exit and entry procedures. However, facilitation of movement of a person should be conducted in a secure manner and through multilateral and bilateral engagements. South Africa, with the AU and SADC, at the AU and SADC level, continue to advocate for strengthening of civil registration systems and documentation of citizens to enable easy facilitation of movement. I must report that in this regard, a regional body called APAI CRVS, meaning Africa Program on Accelerated Improvement of Civil Registration and Vital Statistics, has been formed. The ministers responsible for this are meeting annually. The last meeting was held in Zambia in October last year. Once this is done, that everybody gets a document of one form or the other, it will actually smoothen movement of people and goods. To this end, the Department of Home Affairs has begun to include return arrangements in visa exemptions and bilateral negotiations. Thank you.
Honorable Ngola, thank the Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I am not Honorable Ngola. Honorable Minister.
Honorable Member, do say who you are. You can't just say you are not Ngola. Tell us who you are so that we have recorded here.
The way I'm so known, I did not know you forgot me too.
My deepest apologies for not knowing you, sir, from where I'm sitting.
Your apologies accepted, Deputy Speaker. I am Honorable Mudise.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Can I proceed now?
Yes, proceed that.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Yes.
Honorable Minister, what impact and role will South Africa's chairmanship of the African Union have in the speedy implementation of the Africa Trade Agreement? Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister.
The impact is that our own president is now in the driving seat and he has committed to this. And perhaps maybe I also need to add that, remember, the first chairperson of this free trade agreement is a South African right here at home. So it will have a huge impact on the movement forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable whips in the House, please tell us when people take other people's questions. It saves us a lot of issues that arise when we don't do that. So it's an important communication story. Please don't take it for granted. You must let us know what's happening here. Please, honorable members, I didn't ask for help. Just take it easy. Honorable Rose.
Deputy Speaker, Minister, the AU Protocol on Free Movement of Persons provides nationals of AU member states the right to enter, stay, and move freely for a maximum period of 90 days without a visa. In South Africa, people overstaying visas has more than doubled since fines were scrapped in 2016-2017. So how will you ensure that these persons leave South Africa before the end of the 90 days?
Honorable Minister.
Honorable Member, it is true that South Africa has got an advanced movement system to check whether people have overstayed or not. We do know that they have. What we don't have is to trace them and know where they are. And we are using immigration inspectors. But we are busy modernizing our systems so that we should know that when a person comes here for 90 days, who are they, where are they staying, etc., etc. At the moment, unfortunately, we don't have that.
Honorable Tito.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honorable Minister, why do any Africans in diaspora need any documentations? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Because that is the law.
Honorable Tring.
Point of order. Point of order.
What's the point of order?
Speaker, I think with the greatest respect, the minister must partake in explaining the logic. Because in the context
Honorable member,
of the...
you are asking the minister to elaborate. Please take your seat. No. The answer is no.
But
to you.
But you
Listen,
have a duty.
honorable member, don't argue, please.
I'm not arguing.
You are not meant to be arguing. You are. You are.
Speaker, as the whip responsible, I'm sure I have a duty.
Honorable member.
I've got the responsibility to engage you.
No.
Otherwise, how would I do my work?
Honorable member, please take your seat. We don't accept your story right now.
But I'm not done. At least listen.
I have listened to you, honorable
But I'm
member.
not done.
You have
I
not
must
mentioned.
finish.
No, man.
How do you say?
Honorable Minister, take your honorable thing. Please ask your question. Supplementary question.
Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Deputy Speaker.
Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, sir.
Honorable Minister, the Declaration of Agenda 2063 has marked the rededication of Africa towards the attainment of the Pan-African vision of an integrated, prosperous and peaceful Africa, driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the international arena. What role, if any, has the Department of Home Affairs had towards the realization of this vision of Africa for Africans, irrespective of race, color, creed, or religion? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Just explained that the role that the Department of Home Affairs is playing is to participate fully in the Africa program on accelerated improvement of civil registration and vital statistics, to make sure that everybody in this continent is known, is documented, we know who they are, and we can work with them. That is the role of Home Affairs. And we attend these conferences on an annual basis.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, the next question is question number 1. Asked by Honorable Hlengwa to the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. The matters of trade lie within the purview of the Department of Trade and Industry. But since the question was directed to me, Deputy Speaker, I'll reply as follows. We have, as South Africa, through the Department of Trade and Industry, negotiated with the United Kingdom, as members would have seen in the media, an agreement to regulate trade in the event of the United Kingdom leaving the EU. The agreement replicates the terms that currently apply to bilateral trade set out in the EU's Economic Partnership Agreement with 6 SADC countries, in the form of a new economic partnership agreement between the UK and South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Lesotho, Eswatini, and Mozambique. The new SACU plus Mozambique UK Economic Partnership Agreement, which was approved by Cabinet and announced in the public domain, will preserve the preferential tariff regime, quotas, health and safety standards, and other key terms, and ensure that our trade with the UK continues without disruption. With respect to B of the question, yes, the conclusion of the partnership agreement was undertaken as a result of our government's assessment of the impact on and implications for the Republic arising out of the Brexit process. We believe that we will gain additional market access into the United Kingdom on those products that are currently subject to tariff and other quotas under the old EU arrangements, and that we may very well, out of this new agreement, gain preferential access. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Hlengwa.
Thank you,
Deputy Speaker, question number 1 by number 1.
Okay.
Deputy Speaker, thank you very much, Minister, for your response. The agreement, of course, was concluded in September 2019, and after that, the UK went to elections in December 2019. And so did the assessment that you refer to actually consider the changes which were done to the agreement of the UK to leave the EU, because obviously there was quite a number of changes in that regard. But Honourable Minister, one of the biggest challenges insofar as trade and investment is concerned, and the movement of people, particularly business people, is the stringent visa requirements of the UK. And therefore it begs the question whether the South African government, to ensure the easy movement of business people and so on, have you engaged in ensuring that the very stringent requirements which are hampering and hindering the flow of investment into the country and vice versa is actually addressed, because that continues to be one of the perennial headaches? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Well, I think one of the things that we must admit is that the Department of Trade and Industry was proactive by initiating the deliberations that led to the agreement. However, as you would know, following the election, the Parliament of the United Kingdom has not as yet concluded all the discussions that they have to have with the European Union. So while there's been a vote for Brexit, there's been a vote for the Act, giving the Prime Minister the go-ahead with respect to a broad framework of criteria that would inform the discussions that are now underway. There isn't as yet a comprehensive agreement between the UK and the EU, which could be the basis for further deliberation. So at the moment, we are, with anticipation, continuing our deliberations with the United Kingdom, but we believe the agreement that was adopted is a very good basis for further trade activity. We also participated recently in the United Kingdom Africa Investment Summit, and it was again very clear that the United Kingdom is geared up to really engage with other regions of the world to determine trade agreements that would take advantage of the opportunities that will derive, they believe, from the agreements that will eventually be concluded. I think the test will be the concrete outcomes of the deliberations currently underway between the UK Brexit minister and the trade minister, and as well as the European Union Commission. But we think the proactive steps we took were a very good action by South Africa.
Thank you. Honourable Msani.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Minister, the historic trade between South Africa, Europe, including Britain, is that we give them minerals and they give us finished products. And that is reflected in trade agreements. This trade imbalances has deprived South Africa the opportunity to build industries, wages, and job opportunities. We export mining and agricultural products and import phone systems, computers, and medicine. This is an opportunity to reverse trade imbalances. What step are you taking to make sure that these trade imbalances are corrected in the trade agreements from these diplomatic discussions?
Thank you, Minister, for stepping in on a matter that belongs elsewhere, as you correctly identified.
Really, it does.
Yes. No, I don't need your help. Just keep your quiet. And I'm not talking to you in the first place. Please, I'm talking to the minister. Take it easy. Cool your heels. Go ahead, Honorable Minister.
I was wondering whether I should sit down, Deputy Speaker. Thank you to the Honorable Msani for the follow-up question. I'm not sure that I would be able to answer it to the level of competence that I usually prefer. But let me say that I fully agree with her that one of the things we should improve on the continent is our ability to innovate, to add value to our mineral resources, and thus is an enhancement of beneficiation in the country. But it's important to indicate that we're not a blank slate that produces nothing. There are agro-processed goods and other goods that we are exporting to the UK. It's one of our most significant trade partners, and it's not merely a shipping out. And by the way, the mineral resources are bought, we don't give them away. But it is not merely an exchange of mineral resources. There are many goods in South Africa, processed in South Africa, that are part of the export basket of this country to the United Kingdom. But I cannot by any means disagree with you on the fact that we do need to develop the capacity, not just of South Africa, but the entire African continent, to more effectively add value and to innovate with a range of mineral resources. We have had progress with respect to the pharmaceutical industry. As I said, in the domain of agro-processing, there has been some progress in chemicals and a number of other areas. But on the value addition, particularly in some of the steel and other metal industries, there is a great deal of work that we need to do. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Yes, Honorable Member.
Deputy Speaker, I want to rise in terms of Rule 144,
Yes.
subsection 1.
Yes.
The ministers have an opportunity through that rule to stand down questions they are not competent on, way before.
Yes.
Instead of coming to the House and preambling with the fact that they are not competent or it's not their area of expertise. I would request with all of them that if that was the case, particularly to the minister concerned now, that's what she would have done. By accepting to answer the question, she has accepted a priori that she will be able to deal with the trade questions and the trade agreements. And therefore she must do so competently without telling us those things of saying it's not my area of expertise. It's really wrong. And I would have hoped that you are going to protect us as we raise those questions as sharply as possible, that they've accepted they're going to deal with them, so they must deal with them. Instead, you are even preambling for them that, hey, this is not your area, but go on. That's not parliamentary.
Honorable Member, jy vat nou baie groot kanse. Dis 'n groot kans wat jy vat hier. Honorable members, Honorable Member, the issue you raise is moot. The minister has responded. That she chose to qualify it, it's correct.
Yeah, but you are taking chances with us. We are asking for your protection.
No, you don't need protection. It's
We
already
do.
there.
What is your duty there?
No, my
What
duty
is
is
your
to tell
duty
you
there?
now to sit down. Yeah, that's my duty. Honorable Beckman.
Thank you, Chair. I must say that that answer is actually more coherent than some of the other answers that the ministers give us. Minister, given that we have just had a taste of Brexit in the form of a goer that will soon hit the poor consumer in the grocery basket, has the minister thought about a charm-offensive strategy to engage with our president and possibly remove our celebrity ambassador and improve the morale at our mission in London that is at an all-time low by replacing her with a career diplomat and bulking up our trade attaché to ensure that our bilateral trade is not hurt by another superpower like Britain too in this Brexit debate? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I believe the Honourable Bergman is not right in the way that he's characterized our High Commissioner. I've just been to the UK, and I've seen the work that is being done, and I think there is very good representation of our country by High Commissioner Tambo. I also believe that on the matter of trade representatives, this is something we'd like to increase in many, many missions throughout the world. But given the strictures of resources, we are striving to ensure that those who are in our embassies do focus upon economic and trade matters. I'm happy with the work that is being done by the team in the UK. I was part of a business forum at the High Commission, and I was very, very thrilled at the number of CEOs and business leaders that were part of that forum. So I really do not agree with the manner in which the High Commissioner has been described, and I believe it's just not a fair or appropriate comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Nkosi.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, in the light of Brexit, will you and your department continue to lead South Africa in diplomatic and political relations with the UK in particular, and continue to keep us in the Commonwealth? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Nkosi. Yes, we will continue to engage with the United Kingdom. You don't, Honorable Deputy Speaker, honorable members, drop your fourth largest trading partner easily. You just don't. Doesn't make rational sense. So clearly the relationship will continue, and we will seek to strengthen it, which is why we participated in the Africa Investment Summit. We are members of the Commonwealth. We will be attending the Commonwealth meeting in Kigali in Rwanda in the middle part of this year, and we continue with that relationship as well. What we have to do is ensure we address the matters the honourable member from the EFF raised, and by the way, I said may not be competent. I did not say not competent. I believe that the matters that raised by Honourable Msani remain as critical issues that we should address, and they will form part of the substance of the relationships that we establish. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, I have to say this. Now and then we have to remind you to target your questions appropriately. When they are accepted with absolute generosity of spirit, there's no problem. So, and I like it when ministers go and answer those questions, even if they are conscious that they are not from there. It's appropriate. They are ministers. So I just want to register that let's aim and target better, and things will work out better. Question number 6 has been asked by Honorable P.J. Groenewald to the Minister of Police. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker, sir.
Thank you, sir.
The Minister of Police remarked that he would prefer the situation where only South African Police Service members and the South African National Defence Force members should be in possession of firearms. The minister made his opinion on the matter, but that does not mean that the bill will not be subjected to the processes and scrutiny, and it's only the outcome of those processes that will become the law and act. For now, the members of the public are allowed through the laws of the country to have private firearms. Thanks.
Honorable Groenewald.
Agbare Adjunct Speaker, with great respect, Honourable Minister, you don't answer the question. I didn't ask a question about the bill. You said that you would like that only members of the police service and defence force will have the right to own firearms, not the public? That was the question. The fact of the matter is that your own answer last year on my question from me, you admitted here that more people in South Africa are murdered by sharp objects and knives than by firearms. Furthermore, the proliferation of illegal firearms lies in the police itself. We saw that a police officer sold more than 4,000 firearms to the gangs in Western Cape. After those firearms were handed in because of amnesty. We say it is unfair to legal firearms owners. My follow-up question. Honourable Minister, are you prepared to take part in an experiment that from tomorrow, all your bodyguards, your protectors, that they will not carry any firearms till the end of the year to see whether you feel safe? Thank you.
Honourable Minister, honourable members, don't answer for the Minister. Please, let the Minister answer the question.
Thank you very much, the Honourable Member, Mr. Groenewald, the General. To start with, there were no 4,000 guns that were sold. There were 2,000. There were no, definitely. Definitely, the men, the colonel that were arrested, okay, sold 2,000, not 4,000. So let's agree on that. We found that guy was a member of the South African police. We have arrested him. He's doing 15 years in prison. The question you asked and the comment I made was asked in the relationship of the development of the bill. What is my opinion? My opinion is that it would be better when the ordinary citizens of South Africa are not armed, as you would find in other countries like your South Korea, like your Japan, that only the armed forces carry those firearms. But also, I said the bill will be subjected to the processes. It cannot be the outcome of this minister speaking that declares what kind of the law will have. But this is my opinion, and it doesn't change my opinion that it would be good to be in the country where private citizens are not armed. Having said that, having said that, the bill is on the process, and the law of the South Africa at the present moment allows individual citizens to carry their firearms. But let me tell you more. More of the illegal firearms, they came out of shops as legal firearms. That's why the break-ins, they steal those guns and all that, and there will be no chance of stealing those legal firearms if private individuals did not have those guns. But now there are laws, we respect them. This remains my opinion, and I'll stick with my opinion. Thanks.
Honourable Member, Minister, unfortunately your time is gone. You can use your other time to come. No. I'm running the House now. You take it easy. The Minister's time is over. Honourable Hlengwa.
Ngiyathokoza somlomo. Ngiyothokoza magaya ungasuqale kuleli lama-bodyguard. But Honourable Minister, what you are saying, of course, is very ideal. The practical reality is that guns are in the streets, guns are in homes, and so on and so forth. And whilst you are, of course, have got the amnesty period, people in good faith, yes, will bring the guns. The problem is criminals have got no intention of actually bringing those guns back, because they know that bringing them back will lead to you tracing them after your ballistics and so on. So the question then becomes parallel to cleaning up the streets, to the noble ideals of the amnesty period and to what you are saying. I'm not sure whether I agree with you or not, but that's for another day. But the fact that guns are there, what process is in place then to clean up the streets beyond your noble intentions and idealistic ones, I dare say? Thanks.
Honorable Minister, it's your turn now.
Well, I agree with you that it's an ideal, but it's nothing incorrect to live on the ideal and creating that idea to practice. The crux of the matter, as we speak, the question you have extended it to the amnesty. We have received more than 8,000 guns that have been surrendered now. Indeed, hardcore criminals would not do that. But also, from July up to this point, we have found the guns that are not through the amnesty illegal firearms that are more than 5,000 in Western Cape alone. So we do have mechanism, we do have structures. We have put it on the amnesty to say, when May comes and the amnesty goes, we'll be ready to kick the doors and find those guns that would not have been brought voluntarily. If they don't bring the guns to us, we'll go where the guns are and find the guns back to us. Bodyguards is only half of my life since I became the deputy minister and the minister that I had bodyguards. All my life, I never had bodyguards. All the time they had bodyguards. So I don't have a problem of not having bodyguards. It's something very new and young, and I've lived without them, and I don't care about them. If it thinks they can be taken and go and don't live, that's a dreamland. We are very fine, but I don't know what he wants to do when I don't have bodyguards. But I don't mind not having them. Thank you.
Honorable Shembeni.
Agbara Adyank, Speaker, that's on a point of order, and I ask you to rule on it, whether it is proper for the Honourable Minister to say that I had bodyguards, I never had bodyguards in my life, whether it is correct. No, I'm my own bodyguard, don't worry. Is it permissible that the Honourable Minister can make such a statement which is not true?
Okay, no, Honourable Member, that's not a point of order. Okay, Honourable Shembeni.
Deputy Speaker,
Yes,
on a
sir.
point of order.
What's the point of order?
The Honourable Member was a bodyguard himself.
Honourable members.
Agbara Adjunct Speaker, just to see how confused the ANC is, I am Groenewald, I'm not Mulder.
Honourable member, please take your seat. That's not a point of order. Honourable Shembeni, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Minister, the proliferation of the firearms in society is based only on two things: police officers and police stations that are robbed, and police officers who hire their firearms to criminals to go and kill our people. Now, what steps are you taking internally to combat and to ensure the police firearms are not used by criminals? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Well, the premise is not very correct. That the proliferation of these arms is based on the stealing from the police and them selling. Yes, police, especially corrupt police, like this Prinsloo, they are source, but also those that are stolen from the police stations, but those that are stolen from the individual households where there are break-in, and those that are stolen from the farms, and there are quite many of them that are stolen from the farms, but those that are stolen from the gun dealers. For instance, in PE, a gun dealer a gun dealer, legally so, fell sick and he went for hospital. When he was in hospital, his domestic helper sold all the guns. And he sold the guns like bread in the township, and there were 187 of those guns moved from being legal to illegal. So it can't be correct that the only source of illegal firearms then are police. There are others. We lose a lot of guns individually. We lose a lot of guns from the shops themselves. We lose a lot of guns from private security companies. That's the reason that we need to tighten the laws. That's the reason that we want to make it very difficult for people to have these firearms, especially if they can't take care of them. Thanks.
Thank you. Honorable Patrain.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, with that has been said about guns in the country, in your view, what has been the response by South Africans to the firearms amnesty? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Well, this is a third period of this firearms amnesty. And the response all the time has been good. But I would agree, especially with Honorable Member Tengwa, to say the hardcore criminals don't bring back these guns. Hardcore criminals don't bring back these guns. But lot of these guns, but more than anything, millions and millions of ammunition are brought back by the South Africans. Remember that every bullet has a capacity to kill one person. Now, if you bring them back, that's fine. But I've went on to say we've got thousands and thousands of firearms and millions of bullets that ourselves we find on our operations. So it's both, it's those that they volunteer and those that we find ourselves. If they can't bring the guns, we'll go to the guns and bring them and find them. So we'll forever do both so that we limit. Our aim is to limit the circulation of firearms among and between the South Africans. Thanks.
Honorable members, we go to question 38, asked by Honorable Mudise to the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker and honorable members. In its original design, the Military Skills Development System, MSDS, was developed to be a feeder system for the South African National Defence Force regulars and reserves. However, due to the reduction of funding levels, the recruitment has been reviewed with a reduced number of the annual intakes, but still sufficient to feed the regulars and reserves. Honorable Member, in our military defense strategy, the concept of rejuvenation within the context of our military strategy includes, but not limited to, prime mission equipment, technological advancement, and human resources. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The question is posed by Honorable Modise, but the Honorable Mutle will take charge of the question. According to Rule 137, subsection 10. Honorable Mutle.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, House Chair. The follow-up question to the Minister is in this fashion. Minister, what plans does your department have to ensure the implementation of force rejuvenation? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Rejuvenation must be understood to speak to more than the matter of human resources of the South African National Defence Force. It has to be looked at in its totality, such as defense capabilities, and not just boots on the ground. As of end of January 2020, the strength of the MSDS stood at 2903 across the Army at 1,901, Air Force 623, Navy 237, and the SAMS 142. The rate of attrition over the years has on average been 33,000 per annum due to reasons such as termination of service, retirement, contract expiry, death, and dismissals. Chairperson, what plans? The plans that we have are that of constant engagement, as I've indicated earlier on, that the biggest challenge is budget reduction, constant engagement with National Treasury and the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Republic. But also to say, Chair, that we have been reprioritizing within the programs that we have. We have been using money allocated within the baseline, sometimes money which is not necessarily allocated for rejuvenation, but it has been moved from program to program in order for us to keep the Defense Force alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Ndlozi.
Thank you. Minister, is there in the military the skills for construction? And if indeed they are there, which I think they are, shouldn't we immediately deploy these skills into the Eastern Cape to eradicate mud schools and pit toilets, seeing that the departments concerned have failed? In the same way we did with regards to the Val River project. These are urgent matters for the safety of children in schools. What is your opinion or reaction to that?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ndlozi. There is an entity within the Defense Force which is called the Defense Works Formation. The Defense Works Formation was established solely to look into issues of renovations of different infrastructure within the Defense Force, which has problems. However, we do have skills which we can impact on young people. It doesn't have to be construction, but I do believe that if a request were to be made that we should do that, particularly because our focus now is also on development, that as the government departments through COCTA move around launching the district model, we too in the Defense Force are part of that process, just to understand, but also to identify areas where we believe we can impact our skills on young people. We've been responsible for building some of the bridges in areas which are deep rural areas, deep rural. We've also been assisting in areas where there have been infrastructure challenges, sanitation. If you look at Titsobotla, for instance, in the Northwest, when there was a problem with their sanitation infrastructure problem, we moved in, assisted, and we are still there. We probably are there now for over a year, like in the Val. So there are skills in the South African National Defense Force which can be used to advance and make the lives of our people better in the areas where they live. However, obviously, that would have to be, like in the area of agriculture, we've started a project called Kupatlala, where our people are helping communities to learn how to farm. Thank you, Chair. Same applies to pit toilets.
Honorable Kabekulu.
Thank you, House Chairperson. My question might sound as though the same as that which has been asked by Honorable Ndlozi, but let me phrase it the way I wanted to. Minister, South African Reserve Chief Brigadier General Gerald Kempfer recently stated that the part-time or reserve force component of the South African National Defence Force is being, quote-unquote, South Africanized to contribute to a one-force South African Army approach that will deliver a sustainable capability on a part or on a par with the regular defense force personnel. Elements of Mzansi Home Guard are intended to contribute to intelligence-driven operations, disaster response, humanitarian relief, and water and sanitation intervention, as has been mentioned. But if I may continue asking my question, Minister, is that how far is the process and when South Africa
Siyabonga,
can expect
Mhlonishwa.
it to be operational? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. No, Gerald Kamfer was referring to something which is already is in existence. But what we are trying to do is to, firstly, overhaul the entire structure of the reserve force so that the reserve force can do what we require of it to do. Two, there are some issues which have been identified within the reserve force, such as corruption in the process of call-up. So when he talks about making it Mzansi kind of reserve force, it is about doing those things where our communities require our assistance. As I was finishing earlier on, I was talking about Kupatlala, which is an area where we train our people in farming and assist them in whatever way. The other day, Minister Didiza mentioned that you do have a program called Nasirek, which is young people from the rural areas who are given life skills by the South African National Defence Force, but go on to learn more about farming and other things, rural development, etc. So it's a program which is there. All that is required is to strengthen that program, to attract more young people and give more skills to the group that is out of school. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable SJF Marais.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Minister, we know that spending on our aging staff, which is now on average over 40 years old, are now 60% of budget. And as reported, you have too many generals and not enough foot soldiers to comply with your constitutional requirements and obligations. Are you prepared to negotiate the termination of at least 10,000 aging, obsolete, medically unfit, and over-quota staff and replace them with young people via an aggressive rejuvenation program, which will make us much more responsive and a responsive defense force? And if not, please explain that to us. Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
No, Honorable Marie, as a member of the Portfolio Committee, I'm sure you are aware even of the exact figures that we are referring to. Total number of troops that we have, total number of generals we have, including breakdown between males and females. And I'm sure any other person would make that kind of statement from you, would raise that question. But somebody who's in the committee, who's very much aware that there's no truth in the fact that we have a structure which has more generals than your ordinary troops. It is not true, and you know it. Now, if you look, in fact, if you look at the numbers of the members of the South African National Defence Force, you will see that, in fact, we have very few generals as compared to what other countries have. Now, the issue about age, I think this is a matter that requires an engagement amongst ourselves as society, because there too, there is no truth to it. This thing that some of them are not deployable. No, you are saying age is of 42. How can you say a person who's 42, you can't deploy that person? Are we suggesting that our members of the South African National Defence Force should be retired at the age of 40? There are other things they do other than being deployed to combat. There are other things they do other than going into peacekeeping. If you look at for instance, Prosper itself, you had quite a number of members of the reserve force there. If you look at Corona, you will see that the borderline is guarded by exactly those kinds of people. They are fit for deployment. They are still capable of shooting and do whatever is necessary for them to do. But there is this perception that our armed forces are aged. Yes, we do have people who are slightly older, but we can't say the majority of members of the South African National Defence Force are older than what we should be having in the Defence Force. Honourable Member.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We now go to question number 19, which has been asked by the Honourable O. Esther Blanche to the Minister of Police. As
Thank
the
you.
Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Well, to start with, I would like to correct the number that was asked by the member that there are 946 escapees. There are 473, not 946. Having said that and corrected that figure, the prevention of escapees from police custody is a key performance area of police stations and has been identified as a risk within the South African Police Service. Therefore, any escape from the SAPS custody is a serious concern, and the immediate response to the escape is monitored closely in order to ensure that everything possible is done to trace and rearrest escapees and implement preventative measures. The National Detention Management Plan and the Provincial Detention Management Plans are being developed and implemented annually to prevent escapees from SAPS custody. These plans reinforce the application of organizational control that are reflected in the following instruction. Related to detention management in the SAPS, National Instruction 11 of 2019, the arrest, treatment, and transport of arrest people, and 112 of 2019. In addition, police stations where more than one incident on the escapee has happened, SAPS custody has occurred during the period mentioned above, or where multiple persons have escaped during one incident are identified and visited by subject matter experts from head office to assess the circumstances of the escapees, ensure the application of consequences management, and to determine trends or tendencies in order to implement preventative measures. A total of 15 members were found guilty between 1st April and 31st December 2019, and one of them has been dismissed. 3 of them, their salaries were suspended for a month, and 11 of them were given verbal or written warnings. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Taraplans.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Minister, I would recommend that you go check the figures that you and the police presented to us. That is the very figure that I raised, so your answer is wrong, sir. Minister, would you agree that the lack of maintenance of the holding cells at police stations are part of the problem? If no, why not, Minister? And if yes, how many holding cells have been upgraded during the current financial year? And what is the total number that will be upgraded during the current financial year? Thank you, Minister.
The Honourable Minister.
Well, I will check that. I don't know where you got the number. You will help me so that I go and check the number. Honourable Terry Plach, you are a former general in the South African Police.
Yes, sir.
And you were responsible for the structures.
10 years ago.
You were responsible for the upgrading of the police station and building of them.
10 years ago.
By the one that you were supposed to build at Nsuze has not been built. Having said so, you know very well Having said so, you know very well that these upgrades you talk about, jointly you do them with the Department of Public Works. It's not done by the police per se. You did try to create that element of building for yourself, you failed. Instead, you wasted a lot of money doing that thing. Especially as you try to build the police station of Inanda, you budgeted 15 million, but you used 47 million. So your plan did not work. As we are here now, we are working and we are meeting the public works to say those stations must be upgraded so that they are safe, our police are safe, and there are no escapes. But if you have done your job properly before you left, we would not have been here. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Honorable Speaker, on a point of order.
Yes, what's your
House
point of order,
Chairperson.
Honorable Member?
The minister is asking an apartheid general to build our police stations. How is that a democratic thing to do?
Honorable.
25 years later,
Honorable
police
Member.
stations are underused. They are
Honorable
in a dire state. You are telling an apartheid minister to build for you.
Sit down.
This is irresponsible.
Honorable Ndozi. Musa. Honorable Member, are you rising on a point of order?
Yes, I am.
What's your point of order, sir?
The Honorable Tablanche left the police service 10 years ago, well into...
Honorable Member...
No, excuse me, Chairperson, excuse me. He has just referred to him as an apartheid general. He must
Honorable
withdraw that.
Member,
He must withdraw
Honorable
that.
Member, please. Please. You have posed a question to the minister and he has replied to your question. Honorable Fring.
Sorry, excuse me, Chairperson.
Yes, Honorable Member, what's your point?
I'm asking you to rule on what Mr. Ndlozi has just said, referring to him as an apartheid general. That is not honorable, it is not parliamentary, and he must withdraw it.
I am not aware of apartheid being... I am not aware of apartheid being unparliamentary, but I'll find out about it and come back to you. Can we continue? Honorable Thring.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, it has been reported that the number of prison escapees or number of prison escapes is down from 1,244 in 2014-15 to around 50, 2016-17, and now by your own admission is just over 400 in 2019-20. Understanding that one prison escape is one too many, how many of these escapees have been rearrested? And is there a figure, Honorable Minister, as to how many additional crimes were committed by these escapees? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Yes, as you put the figures that we are trying to reduce these escapees, it would be a better day that day there is no single escape. We are really working towards that. But out of these 400, I would not exactly give exact figure how many they have. But a quite big percentage of them, I can say they've been rearrested and put back. I can work on figures exactly in next 24 hours and give you the figures. And indeed, some of them, they do commit terrible crimes after they've been escaped or sometimes given bail to go out. I would remember that there is one of them that he went back and killed the people that gave evidence against them before they were sentenced. So it's important that we work towards to zero any form of TP, as I've said, that the actual numbers will be given back to you in the next 24 hours.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable J.M. Mofokeng.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, is there a study conducted to analyze the modus operandi of the escapes from the police custody? And if yes, what has been the findings as a pattern of escaping? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member, Honorable Minister.
Yes, these analyses have been made to find the modus of these criminals. One major thing here is corruption. That the members of the service will collaborate with these criminals and allow them to escape from the custody, either from the police cells themselves or en route. That will be the other one. The second one will be the hardcore criminals planning against the police. There are honest members of the South African police that have lost their life through these processes when they are attacked by the criminals that plot and plan against the police going forward. But thirdly, it would be the question of the structure itself. How is it made? How is it safe for the police? As would you remember what happened at Engcobo police station, where the police were attacked there, which could have been some other people that were in custody that could have been taken, though specifically it did not happen here. They stole guns. But our structures sometimes are not up to the scratch. Hence, we need to fix them. So modus operandi will be on those three areas: structural, corruption, but the planning and plotting of the hardcore people planning against our police. Thanks.
Sabong. Honorable T.M. Jumat Peterson. Honorable T.M. Jumat Peterson.
I'm responding on the next question, 46.
Honorable Chair, Honorable Chair.
Okay, noted.
Yeah.
Okay, I will give the opportunity to, that was the next question. But it appears on the screen. We'll give it to Honorable Mafanya.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, were DNA or buccal sample taken on the 473 persons who escaped police custody during that period? Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Well, I believe the member will understand that is happening or is done to the sentenced and convicted prisoners. The question here is about the waiting trial list. That's the answer that you have been given. But taking you on board on that, all people that are released through the remission at the present moment, not a single person that leaves the walls of prison having not taken the sample of the DNA through the Parole kits. So that's what we are doing at the present moment. Thanks, Member.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Question number 46 has been asked by the Honorable T.M. Peterson, Jomat Peterson, to the Minister of Police.
Hi. Thank you, Honorable Chair. The South African Police Service will enhance safety at prioritized tourism attraction areas by deploying reservists who will be recruited from the current tourist safety monitors. B, the deployment date will be determined by the finalization of the processes such as the recruitment and training and enhancement and finalization of MOU between the police and the Department of Tourism. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Juliet.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Minister, what actions have you identified as necessary to ensure the realization of this objective? Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. South African Police Service are responsible for the safety of all people that live in South Africa. That includes our visitors, that includes our guests, that includes the tourists. Therefore, having identified the tourism as one area of growth economically, the emphasis has been made that their safety will have to be enhanced. We have identified those places of interest, especially some provinces that we have identified, and Mpumalanga being one of those provinces, especially Kruger National Park and other natural lodges out there. Therefore, we have created the safer passages going there, but we have also created a reaction units. Whenever these things happen, we are able to arrest these people, as it happened at the Mount Nelson Hotel in Cape Town, where those criminals, they raided the hotel. Fortunately, we have arrested all of those people. What doesn't usually happen? The incident is highly reported. By the response of the police when we arrest, those things are not, they don't get the space on the media. But most of these people are arrested, and such other things are prevented before they happen. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Ndlozi.
Sorry, Honorable Speaker, it's Honorable Shembeni. I had pressed for him. With the greatest respect, Chair. That's the member in the Portfolio Committee.
Honorable Sembeni. Honorable Shembeni.
Thank you, Minister. Taking the consistent and high level of crime in schools and universities, shouldn't your department establish schools and university safety monitors? If not, do you not care about the safety of the learners in these institutions? I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
No, thank you very much. This member specializes on the new questions. He really specializes on the new question. But the member, as the member of the portfolio, will understand that we care so much about the school violence. Here in Western Cape and Gauteng, we're working very closely with the Department of Education. We have created what is known as Adopt a Cop. We have said there will have to be a police that is attached to a specific school for easy and quick response when those things happen to school. And those schools are visited by those members of the South African Police. They check, they sign the register that they've been there, they've seen the students, the learners, they've spoken to everybody. We do that because we care. As I've said, we're working very closely with the Premier here. We're working very close with the MEC of Education in Gauteng to make sure that South African schools, especially the basic education, are safe. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Tarablans.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, the Democratic Alliance supports any measures that will enhance the safety of tourists visiting our country. Minister, and you touched briefly on that, but can you please explain in more detail where these tourist safety monitors will be deployed and exactly what their responsibilities will be with regards to the safeguarding of tourists. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Minister.
Honorable Member, this stems from the MOU between the Department of Tourism and the police. There is an MOU that has been already signed by the Director General from the Tourism and the Commissioner of the South African Police, General Kehla Stoll. That identify the hotspots where there are problems, especially en route to these places. One of that area is Delmas, moving from Gauteng, visiting especially the Kruger National Park. The other one is the mountain here that has been infiltrated by the criminals here in Western Cape. There are other areas. So the memorandum of understanding works with tourism that has recruited these monitors. Ours is to train them, but also from our side, we'll train the reservists specifically to work with tourists, and then they work together to make routes themselves safe, but the areas them safe. Having spoken with the bodies that are dealing with tourism here in South Africa, getting the understanding how can we work together. We are very sure. Actually, if you look the report of the Minister of Tourism, the past December, they said they had the most quiet and safest tourism month because of these efforts of working together. We believe that when they are fully implemented, life will be much better for all of us, including our tourists. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, we go into number 34, which has been asked by the Honourable A.M. Sheikh Imam to the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you. We note the assertion that a large percentage of crimes are committed by parolees or repeat offenders. This is not informed by any analytic data. Having said this, we understand that recent incidents, particularly in the Western Cape, fuel a perception that parolees are major reoffenders. With the assistance of the SAPS, we will enhance our monitoring mechanism on parolees as part of the monitoring system. This will further enhance our data insofar as reoffending by the parolees is concerned. I must also say that parole is not a means of addressing overcrowding. The parole is the first phase of reintegration into the community. It is a means which is a universal accepted instrument of reintegration, because we don't want offenders to only go into the community when their sentences have expired or ended, because this will shock the system and the community. There is a need for a gradual reintegration, and parole is used for that purpose. Put differently, overcrowding is not a factor of consideration when recommending to grant or deny a parole is presented to either myself, the head of centers through the National Council for Correctional Services, or a Correctional Services Parole Board, in particular at a local level. Parole, as I've said, is an international recognized instrument. The Correctional Services Act of 1998 prescribed a minimum detention period that must be served before an offender may be considered for parole. It is not automatic, it is also part of a consideration. Parole forms part of the total rehabilitation program in correcting offending behavior and may include continuation of programs aimed at reintegration whilst in the system of community corrections. A person who is released on parole is not free from the Correctional Services Act. He is still an inmate or a prisoner. Hence, he must still be monitored and be part of our whole system. It is regarded as an aid to the social reintegration of offenders. The factors which are considered when granting or denying parole include but not limited to the following. Any remarks made by the court, if made available to the Department of Correctional Services through the SAP 62, and also the previous convictions through SAP 69. The conduct of the offender, the likelihood of relapse into crime, the risk posed to the community and the manner in which this risk can be reduced, proof of a monitorable and appropriate system. A decision to grant parole is a rigorous process, is not taken lightly. There are also various challenges which inmates face when they are released on parole, such as stigmatization, including them struggling to find employment on the basis of a criminal record, including issues that relate to the proper monitoring system. In spite of all the issues I've raised, the Department of Correctional Service will embark on a process to review the parole as directed by His Excellency the President of the Republic. This will form part of the Justice and Crime Prevention Security Cluster review process of legislations, namely the Criminal Procedure Act and the Correctional Services Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Sheikh Imam.
He's absent without leave.
Honorable Tafeni.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, in light of the fact that overcrowding in correctional facilities is caused by the backlog of people who are awaiting trial, to deal with this backlog, shouldn't your government implement the EFF proposal that our courts must operate 7 days a week? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Thank you. There is an integrated plan dealing with the issue of overcrowding. And this plan includes the NPA, the various judges of the various courts, correctional services officials, and this plan also look at the awaiting trial prisoners with the SAPS, including to look at the issues of bail and the various forms where it has been granted to ensure that people that might have been given bail are released. So from where we are sitting, at this stage, the mechanisms that are put in place are able to manage the issue of overcrowding. I think the issue of people working 7 days a week, it is an issue that Cabinet is seized with in terms of the issues of working hours and so forth. But that affects many other things that relates to the public service, the salaries. It's a more detailed process that needs further interrogation by Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Breitenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. The internal evaluation system for parole in use at DCS is currently dysfunctional and fails to intercept or prevent the release of those inmates who comply with few or none of the requirements to be released on parole, directly creating the horrific incidents of reoffending we have witnessed lately on a daily basis. What urgent steps have you put in place to address these shortcomings in the parole system? And if none, why not?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you. I must state upfront that the current parole system does have flaws, but it is not broken altogether, that it is not functioning. The majority of parolees, as we speak now, we have got about 45,000 of them in society. They are compliant with the parole conditions. But there are those rotten potatoes who commit horrendous crimes. And some of the crimes that they commit sometimes becomes worse than the first crime that they might have went into our centers before they committed the crime. So it also points to the issues of rehabilitation. Indeed, we are looking into whether our rehabilitation program does respond to the individual risk assessment of the offenders. And Honorable Bredenbach is aware that there is a process to look into those rehabilitation programs to respond to each and every offender, and also to look into the current parole processes that we are undertaking, which must enable the parole board to have access to the relevant data from the SAPS in terms of a comprehensive police information, like the victims, the profile of the offender in totality, instead of only looking at the SAPS 62 and the SAPS 69. So there is a discussion within ourselves, including the SAPS, as from tomorrow morning, the Department of Correctional Service and the SAPS will now start to look into the various profiles of those that might be eligible for parole in the next 6 months and a year, to ensure that a comprehensive data is put on the table and in front of the correctional service parole boards, so that the issues that Honorable Bradenbach is raising of those that may
Thank
not
you,
be
Honorable
benefiting.
Minister.
Oh, thank you.
Honorable Swart.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister. Minister, I think it's important that we just put some names to those that have been killed by parolees. 12-year-old Michaela Williams, 8-year-old Tasni van Wyk, 7-year-old Regan Gertzer. Last year, UWC student Jessa Hess. Now, I fully appreciate that you've admitted there are flaws, and according to the media statement this morning, you indicated this is giving you sleepless nights. And I welcome the fact that you're trying to urgently address this issue. But my question is, why, as from tomorrow, would comprehensive data be made available? Why was this not done before? Because, you see, Minister, whilst I appreciate your best endeavors, it's cold comfort to the families of those who have been murdered by parolees. And so I think, Chair, if we could get an indication of greater urgency and why, firstly, you've indicated this is an urgency, but why has it not been done? Thank you.
Honorable the Minister.
Thank you. I think we need to appreciate that the system is maturing. Before 2005, the people who were responsible for granting parole, it was Correctional Services officials. But after that, the Correctional Services Act was amended to enable members of the public to participate in the granting of parole process, including various experts. So you can see the system is developing. And when it was developed at the time, the SAPS 69 and the SAPS 62 was enough information to be put in front of the parole board. But with the various developments that have happened, it has necessitated us to acknowledge that 25 years into democracy, you need to broaden the data that you place in front of the parole board. That the information that we've been putting 15, 20 years ago is no longer enough today. And that is the reason why the information will now be more broadened, including looking at open source information that is available in the public. So in 2005, it might not have been necessary at the time to look at all the comprehensive data, because what was before the parole board at the time was sufficient. But the recent incidents and the various developments also in technology and development have now proven that the information needs to be broadened, needs to be expanded. So the system of correctional services, including the parole, is maturing with time. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, the next question is number 43, which has been asked by the Honorable B.T. Bongo to the Minister of Home Affairs, but Mr. Bongo is not here. Therefore, Honorable Lekhwase is in charge of that. Honorable the Minister.
The Republic of South Africa's international migration approach is focused towards prioritizing development in Africa and is development orientated. Actually, throughout the whole world, migration without development won't be successful. South Africa's approach is consistent with the white paper on International Migration, which recognizes the nexus between migration and development and migration and security. Although South Africa is not a signatory to the AU Convention on Cross-Border Cooperation, the Niamey Convention, which seeks, among others, to ensure delimitation, demarcation, and reaffirmation of inter-state borders, South Africa will continue to ensure national security and promote economic development, continue to strengthen cooperation with its neighbors in border management. South Africa is a signatory to AU's free trade area and is an active participant. We have also formed task teams with our neighboring states to implement one-stop border posts in 6 busiest ports of entry to facilitate smooth but legitimate movement of goods and persons. Yesterday, this Parliament passed Border Management Authority Bill, which will enable us, to prevent and prosecute transnational organized crime, child and women trafficking, transportation of counterfeit goods, and prevention of hijacked and stolen vehicles going through our borders, or even prevent cross-border drug trafficking. All these misdemeanors are an impediment of economic development. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Lekwasa.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Minister, the implementation strategy of the AU border program is based on 3 pillars, which include cooperation, coordination, and community involvement. So, Minister, with regards to the Border Management Authority, are our sister countries with whom we share borders clear on the route we are taking as a country when it comes to securing our borders?
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable the Minister.
As I was undertaking trips to our neighboring countries at the borders to meet my counterparts, the ministers of Home Affairs, in the 6 countries where we are going to have a one-stop border post, I also briefed them on this issue of the BMA, and they understand it, and they appreciate it, and I don't remember any one of them complaining about it, because we are giving to them as sort of a package towards the development of our countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable L.F. Tito.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, in line with the Pan-Africanism, in consideration of the free movement, why should our Africans be submitted to applying for jobs and work permits in their own continent? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
I think I've answered this question before. The laws of these individual countries and the laws of South Africa are providing for that and are saying that, and these laws were passed by this Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Kanyile.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, your inability to manage illegal immigration in the country has created pressure on our informal trade, where people come in and abuse the system. We see undocumented foreigners compete with our local traders. How are you going to make sure that people on a non-business visa are also not competing with local traders? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Honorable Member, the reason that what you're saying is happening was because of our porous borders. And we have just passed the Border Management Authority, Authority Bill here yesterday, which our party opposed. I'm not sure exactly what you want us to do. Complaining here, but opposing all the solutions that are being proposed. Please go and think again.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Nzozi.
On a point of order, Chair, If ministers don't want to answer us, they must just quit being ministers.
Honorable
Why don't you hand in your resignation if you don't want to be accountable to the House?
Honorable Ndlozi, you know, when you stood up, I thought I was recognizing you according to the list that I have here. And then you went astray. No, wait.
Me take chair.
No, Honorable Ndlozi kahle. Honorable Ndlozi, are you going to? Yeah, don't repeat what you've just said now.
How many Europeans are in South Africa that are undocumented? And when are you taking them back to Europe?
A point of order. We don't know the number of undocumented people in the country because if a person is undocumented, then they don't want to be known, whether European or what. As long as they are undocumented, we won't know until they get arrested.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Question number 14 has been asked by the Honorable S.J. Marias to the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans.
Thank
The
you,
Honorable
Chairperson.
Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Honorable Murray. Steps are already being taken to ensure that the strategic capital projects are funded accordingly. In this regard, engagements have already been held and continue with the Minister of Finance and the Commander-in-Chief, because we realize that there is danger that with underfunding and gradual elimination of the special defense account, these projects may not be completed. The result will be the further hemorrhage of jobs in the defense and related industries, as well as the demise of the companies in the sector. We will also examine the possible reprioritization of the projects to be in line with the reality of the budget cuts being experienced. Honorable members, I wish to express strongly, especially as we have assumed the chair of the African Union, that peace is an expensive exercise. But the dividend is even more greater because one, it attracts investment, it provides for economic growth and stability, but also ensures that there's prosperity in the country.
Honorable Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, we know that the special defense account balance of 5 billion rand will be depleted very, very shortly. We also know that on projects Biro, Hotel, Hoefyster, there's already a shortfall of 10.9 billion rand. And on the midlife refurbishment of the three frigates and the submarines, a further 3.3 billion rand. We know that we have got no Air Force Maritime Patrol capability, very limited air cargo capability, and even very limited naval capabilities. Given that the National Treasury has confirmed that they will not approve more money, to what extent are you prepared to reprioritize? You have given an indication that you will reprioritize, but to what extent are you prepared to do that? And are you prepared to liquidate dormant assets and underutilized assets specifically to fund these projects? Because what is the alternative, given those enormous deficits and shortfall over the medium term that has been reported? Thank you very much.
The Honourable Minister.
Very much, Honourable Member. You are correct that the budget cuts are impacting negatively on the South African National Defence Force and its ability to produce its capabilities. One of the entities which are likely to be affected this is AMSCO, as we know that AMSCO is an acquisition agency of the South African National Defence Force. Now, one of the things which we've started doing is to engage the very defense industry, because we also realize that the budget cuts are likely to impact negatively on the defense industry in our country. Now, obviously, with those projects which are already, where we've already committed funding, it's going to be very difficult for us to say, for instance, you've mentioned Parole, Hotel, and Roof Easter, to say defense industry therefore should stop and we can't continue with those projects, particularly because these are projects which have which will have a positive impact on the defense industry once they are ready. But the challenges of the fiscus in South Africa, it's a challenge of the national fiscus. The budget cuts are across all government departments. It is our wish that we wouldn't be affected by this, but the reality is that it does affect us. And as a country, we simply need to engage and find other ways of ensuring that we find the necessary resources. You've mentioned leveraging on some of the assets which we have. Yes, I do agree with you, and it's one of the things which we are looking into. If you look at some of the assets we have, there are assets which we are not using, and we believe that we don't even have to sell, but you may want to lease some of the assets of the Defence Force in order for us to make up for what we do not have. So I do
Thank you, Honourable
agree with
Minister. Your time has
that there's
expired.
a challenge. Thank you.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Three.
Thank you, House Chair. Honourable Minister, noting that many government departments will be impacted by the reduced budget allocations, including the Department of Defence and Military Veterans, how will this impact your department in terms of keeping South Africans safe, as well as our peacekeeping efforts in the rest of Africa? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you very much. I think peacekeeping is not a responsibility which a country simply assumes without engaging in discussions with other countries. In the first instance, in all peacekeeping missions where we are deployed under the flag of the United Nations. So obviously, once there is such decision taken in a multilateral structure, we would have to evaluate, look at what we have, and look at what it is that we can do as part of our own contribution. It doesn't have to be deployment of boots on the ground. It could be that we move into some of the areas when required as mediators, as participants in peace and post-conflict reconstruction and development. We can go in as part of exchange of information. We can go in as military observers. So you do not necessarily require a big unit, let's say a battalion, to move into an area. We may actually provide other services due to the skills which we have, which are versatile within the South African National Defence Force. Thank you.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Kebekulu.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Mhlonishwa, kuliqiniso elingephiko ukuthi imali eningi emnyangweni iya ku-administration yokuholelena abakhona ngaphakathi emnyangweni. Kungebe yini ubulungiswa uma kungancishiswa inani lalabo bese kuthi imalini ehleshulwa lapho ikwazi ukwelekelela ukubona ukuthi ziyafezwa lezi idingo zombutho, ngoba ngaphandle kwawo izwe lakithi alikho ndawo uqhathaniswa namanye amazwe. Ngiyathokoza.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Qinisekile umhlonitshwa uyisho lento ngoba uyazi ukuba enye yezinto izifiso ze-National Treasury eziye zachiwo kwi-Defence Force kukuthi sifanele sikhathe siqephule sibe nabantu esibakhuphayo kwi-Defence Force abangange-12,000 over a 3-year period. Kodwa thina sithi oko akungekhe kwalunga, Ngo-1998, i-Defence Review eyayikhona yayingazange icabange ukuthi lo defense esinaye manje le South Africa ye-democracy esikuyo izohamba ibe yiphathi ye-peacekeeping ibe nazo nezinye inxaxheba edlalayo kwamanye amazwe. Ngalesa sikhathi sasicabanga ukuthi konke esikwenzayo sizobe sikwenza la ekhaya silungisa apha ngaphakathi ekhaya. Ukhumbule ukuthi besiphuma ngelo xesha kwi-period embi kakhulu sisaziwa njengelizwe eli-aggressor, ilizwe elimoshayo kwezinye indawo. Now, kwi-Defence Review ka-2015 iyatsho nje phece ukuthi sifanele ngoku silungise singajongi amanani esasithetha ngawo ngo-1998 sithethe ngoku ngamanani ka-2015 ngoba i-responsibilities zethu as a country zikhulile. Of course, it makes it even more sineqanduva olukhulu njengoba upresident nje engu-chair we-African Union siqinisekile ukubana i-expectations zabantu zizawuba ninzi kakhulu kuMzantsi Afrika. So sizozama ngako konke in spite of the fact that i-resources asinazo ukuthi oko sinako ukukwenza as a country sikwenze. Kodwa esingenako ukukwenza, we'll be honest about it. We will come to the house sitsho ukuthi as oku asingeke sakwazi ukwenza.
Honourable Minister, your
Thank
time
you
is
very
now
much.
expired. The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Ntlangwini.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Minister, in light with the budget decreasing of your department, how much of your capital expenditure procurement is locally produced? Shouldn't you move to ensure that all of your goods and capital are produced within South Africa? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Through Chairperson, fortunately, South Africa has one of the most organized, well-organized machinery defense industry. So whatever it is that we need really, we procure here in South Africa. However, during the course of that, defense industry itself then sometimes gets suppliers from outside of the Republic of South Africa. But as for us as a country, as the South African National Defense Force, we believe in empowering our own defense industry. Just to indicate as well that we have what is called a defense industry charter. That defense industry charter, we drew it up we adopted in 2018. The reason why we have that charter, it is to enforce that defense industry complies with some of the requirements which we have as a country, amongst others, set-asides for military veterans, set-asides for black women, so that the defense industry stops being male, white, and male-dominated. So we're trying our best. Of course, what we have to do now is to appoint a council which will monitor compliance with the charter. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. We will proceed to the next question. Question number 33 has been asked by the Honourable Ndlozi to the Minister of State Security. I've been informed that the Minister of State Security has requested that, due to the sensitive nature of the reply to this question, that the question is deferred to the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence. This correspondence was directed to the Speaker, and the Speaker has agreed to this request. Honourable Ndlozi.
Honorable Chairperson, we have not received official correspondence ourselves. As per the rules, we are supposed to be informed that our question is standing over, so that we have an opportunity to resubmit, because the ministers ought to be held accountable. It's an opportunity which comes once in a while to ask the minister a question. Now I'm being shocked here that I can't ask a question which is of national importance. As you can see in the question paper, it has to do with the torching of schools. This is a matter of national interest. The people of South Africa want to know whether there's any role that this department is doing about that situation. So I don't know how we handle this. I want an opportunity to resubmit a new question before the end of this session.
Thank you, Honourable Member, for your intervention. Honourable Members, Prior to this question, I asked the official from the question office exactly the question, have the member been informed? And I was told, yes, the member has been informed. So we will get the letter or whatever form of communication that was sent to you, Honorable Ndlozi, and we will deal with the matter in that light. Unfortunately, in terms of the sequence of questions that we're using now, it would have been preferable if that decision was communicated timeously so that we could have dealt with the matter in the way that you are suggesting. Unfortunately, that is not possible now, and we will have to proceed to question number 45. Yes, Honourable Member?
House Chair, you have acknowledged the shortfall. Can I ask a new question? It's
No.
not my fault. It's not my fault. I have a constitutional right to raise questions to the minister. And if she's going to not answer the questions, I should have been informed in time so that an opportunity for a more non-sensitive question could be asked. And I have it here. Can I ask the question so that we deal with this and members of parliament can do follow-ups?
Thank you, Honourable Member.
Because it's not our fault. It's the fault of the table staff and herself.
Thank you.
Don't know.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, in terms of Rule 137, Sub-Rule 6, a question is submitted for oral reply and must be placed on the question paper for reply at least 6 working days prior to the question day on which it is to be replied to. Unfortunately, the rules do not allow me for you to submit now a new question and expect the minister to immediately reply to that. And that is my ruling on this matter. Are you rising on the same point of order, Honourable Member? Yes?
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Honourable House Chair, if we're going to allow ministers to come to this House sitting and just state that they won't be able to answer a question based on the sensitivity of the matter, after how long? And the member didn't get the correspondence. We're going to have a new fashion now, and this is going to take precedence. Your ruling is going to take precedence on future House sittings, that these ministers will use this now and say, no, it's sensitive, no, we can't answer it. Can we please allow Honourable Ndlozi to also do his mandate and his work to ask a new question?
I've ruled on the matter, and I'm not going to change my ruling. Honourable Members, I just wish to remind you that, in fact, there is precedence. The Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence was established in accordance with Section 199, subsection 8 of the Constitution of 1996 and Section 2 of the Intelligence Services Oversight Act 1994, Act number 40 of 1994. In the high-level review panel report on the State Security Agency dated December 2018, it recognizes that the JSCI, and I quote, was designed as a mechanism for our intelligence services to be accountable to Parliament while taking into account the sensitive nature of the intelligence work. End quote. It has been the practice that ministers will defer questions of a sensitive nature to the JSCI as the appropriate body where such sensitive information may be canvassed and the appropriate forum to exercise oversight on sensitive matters. See Rule 2, subsection or paragraph H, and replies to questions 638 and 673 on the 29th of October 2019 and 393 on 8 March 2017 and 739 on the 23rd of March 2015. In line with this established practice, the matter which requested information on the work of the intelligence services was then deferred by the Speaker to the JSCI and as the appropriate forum for this matter to be discussed. And thus, unfortunately, the rules do not allow me to allow impromptu questions from the floor. Honourable Ndlozi?
Yeah, that's fine, Chairperson. All we're saying is an equal reprimand must be sent to ministers, because we sent this question over a week ago. So if the question was sensitive, why wait until today? I'm saying recognize the injustice in incapacitating Parliament to hold ministers accountable. We agree there are sensitive issues and all of that, but why she has literally sabotaged us. And there must be a direct reprimand in that regard as a separate arm of the state, that we can't accept such a practice. The reason these questions are sent on time, way before, is precisely to provide for such eventualities.
Thank you, Honourable Member. We'll deal with the matter. And we will follow up in terms of the correspondence that was sent to the Speaker and the reply from the Speaker. And we'll also see from the table staff if they have done what they were supposed to do. And we'll revert to you on this matter. I now proceed to question number 45 that was asked by the Honorable Mohammed to the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you. Fighting crime requires a collaborative approach. No single department can do it on its own, and each department has a very specific role to play in this regard. That is why the Peace and Security Cluster comprises of Ministers of Defense and military veterans, Home Affairs, International Relations and Cooperation, Justice and Correctional Services, Police and State Security. These ministries, together with all departments and law enforcement agencies that form the Justice, Crime Prevention and Security, continue to work together in their collective endeavor to fight crime. The Integrated Justice Program was adopted by the JCPS cluster as a vehicle to modernize the criminal justice system through the development of transversal technology solutions to leverage the fight against crime. The primary objective of the IJS is to transform the criminal justice system into a modern, efficient, effective, and integrated system by electronically enabling and integrating the end-to-end criminal justice business process, from the report of a crime to the release of a convicted person, and it has an integration into society. Through technology solutions and managing the related interdepartmental information exchanges across the criminal justice value chain. This program has been in existence for more than a decade, and government has made substantial investment through the deployment of technology solutions, both in terms of systems and IT hardware, to the various JCPS departments. Among the IT solutions developed through the IJS, we count the Police Integrated Case Docket Management System and Police Automatic Fingerprint Identification System, the Prosecution's Electronic Case Management System, the Court's Integrated Case Management System, the Correctional Services Integrated Inmate Management System, and the Department of Home Affairs systems such as the National Identity System, supported by a multimodal automated biometric identification system, which will replace the current Home Affairs National Identification System. As at 30 August 2019, more than 1,850,000 cases have been electronically processed via the IJS Transversal Hub using IJS system integrations between the SAPS, NPA, and the Department of Justice and Correctional Services. These electronic information exchanges include associated docket-ready notifications, docket request, electronic charge sheet, and electronic case outcome, and integration. The implementation of the IJS has not been without challenges, and key to these challenges has been the inability to optimally integrate programs of the various actors in the criminal justice value chain, which is attributed mainly to various issues of leadership. We are in the process of addressing the challenges. Importantly, we will soon be embarking on a comprehensive assessment of the projects implemented under the IJS program, with a view to enhance those that have yielded positive outcomes and incorporate into the programs of the line function departments, whilst at the same time we discuss those that have not yielded the desired outcomes. Thank you.
Honorable Mohammed, you have a follow-up question? Where is the honorable member?
Honorable Chairperson, there is a follow-up question
Yes,
by
you may take it,
Honorable
sir.
Mofokeng. Thank you.
Honorable Mufokeng, do you want to take the follow-up question?
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Minister. Minister, you acknowledge that the integrated justice system has not been without challenges. Over the past few weeks, the country was made aware
of the murder of an innocent 8-year-old girl by a parolee. This is a serious indication that the system, within the justice system, need to be speaking to one another. How is the department planning to work with other departments in ensuring that such atrocity never happens again? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Indeed, as I've said, that there is a need for the interlinking of the system from Home Affairs to police to the NPA to the correctional services to the court administration process. It needs to have a relay effect so that anyone who is arrested, on real time, the police can be able to see the fact that this person was once in our correctional centers. Same when the person arrives to the NPA, they must be able in real time to be able to detect comprehensively the previous criminal records and the involvement of the person in any kind of criminal activity. And also same when it goes to the correctional services. When a person arrives with the information, they must be able, with the click of a button, to be able to access all the information of the person who's arriving. So because of this challenge of the failure to interlink the systems, sometimes inmates change their names and various challenges that we have. So the interlinking of the system is a priority for the cluster, and it is being addressed. We believe that as an issue, it is almost like the engine of the entire criminal justice system. If this could be, as we speak, there is a process that is aimed to ensure that this system functions optimally and all departments are able to talk to each other through this integrated system. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Breitenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Minister, when you describe the integrated criminal justice system like that, it sounds quite wonderful. But the fact is that over the past 18 years, an amount of not less than 6 billion across all the participating departments has been poured down the drain. That is the integrated criminal justice system. The results thereof could scarcely fill the bottom of a thimble. What explanation can you offer for this abject failure? And why should we continue to spend money on such an obviously failed system?
The Honourable Minister.
As I've said, there have been successes, and I've mentioned the successes, and I've also acknowledged that there have been indeed challenges. But the fact that there have been challenges does not mean that we must abandon our quest to modernize the criminal justice system, even government for that matter, because we'll be overtaken by the whole world in terms of modernization, and not only by the whole world, we will also be overtaken by the criminals themselves, who will be afforded the most recent and up-to-date technology, which the system of government must be able to be at the forefront on the cutting edge of technology. So for that reason, it's important that we do not abandon on the basis of faltering and of the faults of the system. We must proceed soldier on. Where there have been mistakes, let's correct them and correct the system. And where there have been challenges in terms of some kind of leakages in terms of finances, those are being dealt with by the various relevant investigations and law enforcement agencies. But ours is important that we soldier on and modernize the system of the criminal justice system, but also of the whole government as a whole, so that we're up to date, we keep up with the rest of the world, but we are also a leader in these issues of technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The Honourable Tafeni.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, when are you publishing the register of sex offenders? What is the website? Will there be an application for a mobile smartphone with a powerful search engine by location? Say name and pictures. Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you. As you are well aware, this is the register of sexual offenders. It relates at this stage only for minor, and it is still not yet made public. The publishing of the register, it requires a legislative review, which the President has undertaken, and we are in the process of ensuring that there is such kind of publication, which will be in line with the laws of the country. It is important that it's done through proper processes of legislations and so forth, because if it is not done through proper checks and balances, we will open ourselves to various risks as a country. So that's why we have to do all due diligence processes to enable the system to function in a manner that is compliant with the Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is to be taken by the Honourable Swart.
Thank you, House Chair, and thank you, Minister. Minister, we appreciate the endeavours to modernize the criminal justice system and what you've indicated. Obviously, it is most desirable from the ACDP side that if a person is arrested, you'd be able to immediately ascertain both from the criminal record section as well as from Home Affairs and their data as to what the background is of that person. Now, you've indicated the challenges, and we appreciate that, but of course we know, and this is the question, the budgetary challenges facing the department now. What impact will that have on integrating your ICT systems across the departments? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Swart, for acknowledging that there has been some kind of progress, and there is will from all of us in the departments to see this modernization project succeed. The budget constraints, obviously, they affect the whole of the government, and the Minister of Finance spoke about the challenges that we have. But we believe that with the little resources that are there, a foundation has been laid, and we can enhance from that foundation to build this integrated system that will enable us to modernize the entire system. We are of the view that these resources, albeit not enough, can enable us to lay a foundation to build from when heydays comes back again. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, we now proceed to question number 39 that has been asked by the Honourable Chabane to the Minister of Home Affairs. The Honourable Minister.
House Chair, the African Development Bank indicated in its African Economic Outlook 2017, a report that trade between African countries has the greatest potential for building sustainable economic development and integration. This report noted that trade among African countries improved from 10% in 2000 to about 16% in 2014. By global standards, this is very low for trade within a single continent. This challenge was directly confronted by President Cyril Ramaphosa when he assumed the chair of the African Union for 2020 at the 33rd session of the African Union Assembly, when he stated that, I quote, "The African Continental Free Trade Area will enable us to work together through intra-Africa trade, as it will reignite industrialization and pave the way for Africa's integration into the global economy. As a player of considerable scale, it is the realization of the dream of our forebears to see the rich resources of Africa being marshaled for the collective benefit of Africans. We must all ensure that Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement does not become a conduit for products with minimal African value addition to enter and penetrate our local markets under the guise of continental integration. There must be a reasonable standard set for what constitutes a product that is proudly made in Africa. We have to level the playing field for African businesses so they are able to operate in large-scale market unfettered by the regulatory fragmentation. This is an integral part of rebalancing global trade relations. The era of economic colonialism and imperialism, under which Africa is a pit stop in the global assembly line, has passed. The success of Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement depends on infrastructure and development. We must all drive the implementation of the Presidential Infrastructure Champion Initiative so that priority and high impact projects act as catalysts for Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, close quote. Efficient trade facilitation and secure border management are inseparable. In South Africa, we took the decision to formally in 2013 establish a border management authority, which a bill was passed yesterday. This organ of state will be responsible for border law enforcement at all 72 ports of entry and within the land and maritime border law enforcement areas. In summary, the net effect of the Border Management Authority and the redevelopment of the 6 busiest land ports of entry as one-stop border post is that the conditions will be created for promoting greater, more efficient and secure movement of people and goods in support of inter alia, boosting inter-African trade under African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Thank you.
The follow-up question will go to the Honorable Chabane.
Thank you, Minister, for the accurate, detailed response. Noting that yesterday we passed the BMA, what is your response to those who are opposing, citing that it will constrain the free movement of persons and trade agreements? Thank you.
Aim of the Border Management Authority is not to impede, but to enable movement of of goods and services and movement of people, but do away with illegalities like trafficking in people and in people, like stolen goods going across the border, counterfeit goods, drugs. All those are not good for trade, and they won't be good for Africa free trade. So it's not true that the Border Management Authority will impede. Actually, it will facilitate. Thank you.
The next follow-up question will go to the Honorable Ndlozi.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. The obvious security breaches in relation to border management relate to goods and services that are avoiding custom duties, for an example. I understand also with illegal products. My question is, obviously, this is a very tough job, and this is organized crime in most of the cases. Has the Department of State Security or the State Security Agency ever provided you with an intelligence product that has ever assisted your work in border management in relation to illegal goods? You don't have to tell me the details. You are under oath, Minister. Have they ever provided you with an intelligence product that assists, because they're involved in the border management? So I'm just simply, please be honest.
Thank you, Honorable
No one is going to fire you. I've got your back.
Honorable Minister.
Honorable House Chair, the function of the Department of State Security is to provide intelligence to all government departments, all of them, including the Department of Home Affairs. When they notice something that will threaten state security in your department, they inform you. They actually give reports on regular intervals for you to watch out. So every government department receives intelligence that is important for the work they are doing.
The next follow-up question goes to the Honorable Ruas.
Thank you, House Chair. Minister, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement requires the facilitation of movement of persons between member states. So you mentioned that steps are being taken to finalize bilateral return agreements, which would include the return of illegal immigrants from those countries. So with Home Affairs deportation budget having halved in the last 3 years, do these bilateral agreements include the costs of deportation being paid by those countries?
Honorable Minister.
Yes, in the discussions we are having with them, we are putting that as a proposal, and we know at least one country has shown that they might accept that. That's Kenya, with which we have also piloted the e-visa. So yes, in our negotiations, we are actually putting that on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The last follow-up question goes to the Honourable Thring.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Honourable Minister, recently the President of the United States, Trade Representative Robert E. Lighthizer, approached Kenya with regards to a free trade agreement that would be the first in sub-Saharan Africa. Noting that South Africa and Kenya are signatories to the Africa Free Trade Agreement, are there negotiations with your department and your counterparts in Kenya to look at what are the ramifications in terms of these so-called agreements and how will that impact on the Africa Free Trade Agreement that our countries have? Thank you.
We haven't engaged ourselves in that, unfortunately, Honourable Member. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Members, we now proceed to question 48, asked by the Honourable Peacock to the Minister of Police. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. No memorandum of agreement has been signed between the Minister of Police and the Premier of Western Cape regarding the proposals by the Western Cape government to recruit additional law enforcement officers. Well, the question talks about the police. There are no police officers by the local government. But our understanding is that the applicable term in this case is a law enforcement officers. The Minister of Police and the Premier of the Western Cape are currently negotiating a draft implementation protocol for the implementation of program in support of violence prevention and safety initiatives in the Western Cape. It is envisaged that the cooperation and collaboration framework to be provided for in the draft protocol shall encompass the provision by the respective parties to this draft protocol of oversight, accountability, operational and funding support of the specific crime prevention programs in the Western Cape. The draft protocol is not limited to the issue of recruitment of additional law enforcement officers only. It is important to note that the parties to the draft protocol are still in the process of negotiating the nature and extent thereof, and no agreement on the contents thereof, including the issue of recruitment, had been reached yet. Discussion on the composition, structure, and command and control of the law enforcement officers are also part of the ongoing negotiations. Issues of oversight and accountability are of a major concern in the negotiation of the protocol, as well as ensuring that functions of law enforcement officers are within the mandate and not unduly encroaching on the mandate and functions of the South African Police Service. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. A follow-up question from the Honourable Peacock.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Honourable Minister, how would you ensure that the Western Cape Safety Plan advances good governance and adhere to the President's SONA's priorities? I thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Through the Chair, that's why we're discussing protocols. One other thing is that the law enforcers and the police themselves, they are established and work within the legislative framework. The problems that we have encountered, that we are trying to sort out, is that indeed there are elements that tell us that if they are not washed, if we are not working closer to it, people might encroach and don't respect the legal framework that they're supposed to work. We're hopeful that we will, and as I've said before, that I find it very reasonable to work with the Premier of Western Cape more than anybody in this House. I hope we'll find the better outcomes with the Premier.
The next follow-up question goes to the Honourable Ter Blanche.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honourable Minister, you know that the additional 1,000 SAPS members deployed is merely not enough to alleviate the high crime rates in the Western Cape. Now, during the SONA debate, Minister, in Parliament, you stated that the efforts of the Western Cape Provincial Government and the City of Cape Town to appoint new law enforcement officers is unlawful, and that these officers are therefore criminals and should be imprisoned. Minister, is that still your position, the position that you hold at the moment? If not, why not, Minister? And if yes, what have you done to rectify the situation? And have you registered a criminal case if that is unlawful? Thank you.
Honourable members, you are reminded that in terms of the rules, you are supposed only to ask one follow-up question. Now, I'm the presiding officer and I rule that the honourable member have asked more than one question. Honourable member.
Well, fortunately, this is a repeated question that I was not given an opportunity to answer it one day. Honourable member, there are laws in this country. It doesn't matter what part of the country. And there is no independent state out of the Republic of South Africa. For that reason, here in Western Cape, the police was shot and killed the member of the South African Police Service by the law enforcement member. That we wanted all legal papers that are supposed to be used by these law enforcement members. One of that is from the Criminal Procedure Act regulation signed by the Minister of Justice to say all certificates for them will be signed by the National Commissioner of the South African Police. For 4 times or 5 times, we have wanted those certificates. They are not forthcoming, which means that they are operating illegally. If you operate legally, we are part of criminal element. So we need to deal with it as such. Simply put, we have said, give us certificate. If not certificate, we must take the guns that are not certificated in your hands. That's the only thing we have said. We're standing here. We can't find this certificate. Please ask them to give us certificates. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Order, Honourable members. The next follow-up question is from the Honourable Shembeni.
Thank you, House Chair. Minister, are you involved in the training of the law enforcement officers in the Cape Metro and Johannesburg Metro? If not, is it in line with the SAPS standard? And how credible is it? Thank you very much.
Honourable Minister.
Honourable member, there is a Bible in this country called the Constitution, and there are other pieces of legislation. The Constitution talks about 2 levels of policing. That is your police, South African Police Service, and Metro Police. That is in the legislation and the Constitution. But one important thing, those documents, they create the oversight of those two structures. Unfortunately, there is no structural oversight on the law enforcement. So they carry guns, they do things, and we can't have an oversight. The mechanism of looking after them is that we sign certificates, and those certificates, as we speak, are not there. We have asked to find this certificate. We're told that there are more than 100 of these members, but we have been given only 10. We have even made it easy to say, give us on the piecemeal if you can't bring them all. They are not forthcoming. So the question is, there's no blessing, there is no legal legislative framework that has allowed this law enforcement to be happening. That's what we are working with the Premier of the province to put some legal legislative on the matter so that for now, they are not. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, we now proceed to question number 18 by the Honourable Gondwe to the Minister of Defence and Military Veterans. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, unfortunately, the response to this question would entail disclosing full security details of a South African National Defence Force project. Due to the sensitive nature of the question, I would like to recommend that this matter be dealt with in a closed session of the Joint Standing Committee on Defence or the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, while I agree with what you are saying, it will be helpful to the House if that can be communicated prior to the sitting, so that we can convey it to the member who asked the question, and also then make the necessary arrangements for such a session to be arranged for the discussion to ensue. Why are you rising, Honourable Member?
On a point of order, sir. I just want to underscore the point made by Mr. Ndlozi earlier. This question paper was published more than 6 days ago. The Minister could have written to us or to the table to inform us that this was going to be her response, and we could have tabled a different question. So I would like to ask that the Speaker's chair take action against both ministers that have abused the rules in this way today. Thank you.
Yes, honourable members, this is now the second question of this nature, and I think what we will do is to request the subcommittee on the rules to look into this matter and see how we can make it more explicit to avoid an occurrence of this nature. Honourable Ndlozi, why do you want to rise?
No, Chair, thanks very much. It's not a matter of our rules. It is the ill discipline of the ministers. And Chairperson, you have to therefore redirect the effort to correct them from either the leader of government, or you must speak directly to them as you did now. They knew that the question of Project Flute is a sensitive matter. Then why agree that it must come here? So it's them, it's very clear now that it's them who are sabotaging Parliament from holding them accountable. If a question must go to the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, you should have said that 6 days ago so that we resubmit a new question.
Thank you, Honourable
Because
Member.
now we want to know about this project.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I want to proceed to question number 22. The Honourable Minister, Pando.
Chairperson, I would assume that when you do reflect on this matter as requested by the Honourable Ndlozi, you would also look at the rules related to membership of the committees referred to and the expected conduct in terms of the codes associated with those committees, so that we take the appropriate guidance from yourselves.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, I now want to proceed to question 22 asked by the Honourable Mafanya to the Minister of Police.
Sorry, Chairperson.
Why are you rising, Honourable Member?
My greatest apologies. It's really futile, Honourable Chairperson. It starts with, you got the question 6 days ago, you should have told us 6 days ago. There's nothing that we don't disagree with the wisdom that some of these matters, if in deliberating their details, can be referred to that committee. There's no excuse whatsoever
Honourable Ndlozi,
that these ministers did not tell us 6 days ago.
We'll deal
they
with
must
the
not
matter.
stand and defend anything.
Honourable Ndlozi.
Just take it. You are wrong.
Thank you. Take your seat now. Honourable Minister of Police will respond to question number 22 that has been asked by the Honourable Mafanya.
May I now proceed?
You may proceed, Honourable Minister.
A total of 18 fraud cases dockets relating to the Life Estimeni tragedy are currently under investigation. These cases were reported by the Special Investigation Unit in terms of the Presidential Proclamation number 23 of 2017, issued on the 24th of July 2017. No arrests have yet been effected. 5 of the 18 cases dockets have been fully investigated and are currently pending a decision from the Director of Public Prosecution. The remaining 13 cases dockets are still under investigations. Thank you very much.
Honourable Mfanya.
Point of order, Chairperson.
What is the point of order, Honourable
Some
Member?
laughters of honourable members are unparliamentary there. We can't hear what the minister said.
No, honourable members.
They are overwhelming the minister with their laughter there. I don't know what they're laughing at.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable members.
Because we're talking about life
Chair, can I call order?
Order, honourable members.
Can I call order, Chair?
Order. Now, before I come to you, Honourable Modise, you may take your seat, Honourable member. Now, order. You see, when the minister was busy responding to that question, I was also distracted by laughter. And really, honourable members, when we deal with sensitive issues and we have a minister on the floor to respond to these type of questions, we expect members that even if they converse with one another, to do in such a way that it does not interrupt or disturb the decorum of the House. So I really would want to apply to all members to desist from doing so that we can deal with these matters in a responsible way. The Honourable Modise, why are you rising?
Thank you very much, Chair. I want to plead for consistency. That every time a speaker rises to a podium, you call for us to mention which rule are we rising on. But there are those who wear different colors than others, who are perpetually rising.
Order, honourable members.
Who are perpetually rising, and they are never asked which rule, according to the rule book, are they rising for.
Thank you. Order,
Thank you
honourable members. Order. Honourable members, if you order, honourable members, Honourable Modise, take your seat now. No, honourable member, you raise a point of order, but you must read the rule further. The rule doesn't stop there. The rule says that if a member can indicate exactly what it is that he or she is rising on, they may proceed with a point of order. Just read the point a little bit further and you'll see what I'm talking about. Order, honourable members. Order, honourable members.
Point of order, Chair.
Order.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes, honourable member.
Chair, I want to agree with the Honourable Dr. Mdlozi. I think that when members are actually speaking, the decorum of the House has to be kept.
But honourable member, I've just ruled on it.
But no, here's my point. Yesterday, when I was speaking, Honourable Ndlozi was interrupting me.
Oh, honourable member, take your seat.
So I think there must be consistency.
No, honourable
Chair.
member.
Thank you.
Honourable member, that was yesterday. You should have raised your point of order then. I'm going to ask the Honourable Fenyana to ask a follow-up question. Order, honourable members.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, the Life Estimate Commission of Inquiry also exposed offences that were committed by political office bearers like the MEC and the Premier. Has there been any legal step taken to hold them accountable? Thanks. Wait. It's not you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Order, honourable members.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Maybe the question was about Judicial Commission. There was a Mosanega Commission, not Judicial Commission, at his last estimate. Maybe if we could put that one in order first. The investigation is for everybody that was and is involved in life estimate without names. We're not investigating names. We're investigating people that were involved. At the present moment, there are 18. Broadly, people that are being investigated, there are 118. But this question is specific on fraud and corruption. Those are 18. And then we have taken the information that is ready to the public prosecution. And then the names will be coming from there without labeling them, whether they are ministers or what, but we're investigating the people that were involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The honourable members, the time allocated for questions has now expired, and outstanding replies received will be printed in Hansard. That concludes the business for the day, and the House is adjourned.